All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Totally Average Gamers podcast. I am KBurns30. I am here with AB Cincinnati and I, Frostbite. Welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone doing well tonight on this cold
Hi,
January.
Mom. I'm on the internet.
Being average, as usual. So, for those who had missed our first inaugural episode, we are the Totally Average Gamers. We are here to be average. That's basically all we're good at. We play games averagely, we talk averagely, and we have opinions that you probably don't care about.
Excuse me, we're not good at being average.
We're pretty average at it.
My apologies, I misspoke. If you did miss our first episode of our podcast, it is now live on Anchor and on YouTube. You can get the links to those socials just below this stream right here, or we could post them in chat later. But please do go ahead and check that out. You missed a really good episode where we talked lots and lots about video game music, and you got to see all of AB Cincinnati's
opinions.
Well, I was going to say your massive stack of CDs that nobody else has anymore.
It's growing.
It's growing.
It's growing. I ordered more of them the other day.
Oh yeah, you said you got Shovel Knight or something?
Yeah. So just a quick one note about that. I had been meaning to pick up the CDs for like the various expansions to Shovel Knight, and it turns out I think I got the first one off of Fangamer, but then the other ones were all being sold by Limited Run, and so I picked them up because it was like $10 a piece for each of the soundtracks.
The only person buying CDs in 2021 right here.
There's still a market for it. It's just
you're the market for it.
It's just much more limited.
No, that's not true. My 62-year-old stepdad still buys CDs too. So.
Oh man. Well, moving on from the whole music discussion, that was a couple weeks ago. We thought we would kick it off. We ended our last show off with talking about all the games that we were playing. There was opinions on some of those, a lot of overlap. We thought we'd give you a small update on the games that we're struggling through. This one's fun because all of us last time had a little bit of Final Fantasy VII going on. ABC was playing.
Yeah, that's a funny coincidence.
ABC is playing the original Final Fantasy VII. I too was playing the original Final Fantasy VII as well as the remake, and Frostbite was just playing the remake. So we're all kind of overlapping there. Progress. I actually finished the original Final Fantasy VII. It is the first Final Fantasy game I have ever completed. And it's also the first game I've actually finished through to completion in a long time. So that's a pretty big win for me. ABC still struggling with it.
Wait, let me give you a little victory.
We'll get to that. It's okay.
Fanfare.
That's it. That's it right there. My favorite part of Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I'm still also playing, is that they don't really have that theme in there. But at one point in the game, Barrett just starts humming it.
I took a clip of that on my PS5. I thought that was hilarious.
I thought that was quite amazing. Anyway, I've moved on from Final Fantasy VII Original, and I've now moved on to Final Fantasy X.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we've now started that one. That's actually the main game I'm playing at the moment. I've kind of taken a step back and reevaluating some of the other games I had been playing. Still doing a lot of the Legend of Zelda stuff on stream, but I'm kind of mostly in Final Fantasy mode right now, which is weird for me.
Unlike you. Very unlike you.
Very unlike me. I know I'm like 3 decades late to the party on this franchise, but here we are. I'm playing Final Fantasy. So that's as much as I can say right now. And since we spoke 2 weeks ago, that's really what I played is Final Fantasy. Lots of Final Fantasy. So let's kick it on over to ABC because you are struggling with Final Fantasy.
Well, struggling is the wrong word, but yeah, I'm slowly working my way through that game. I've been playing it once a week on stream, and unlike previous JRPG streams, I've been actively not playing ahead so that people can watch from the start and catch everything. So Cabrins jumped in on my stream on Monday and helped me through a large section of the game. Are we allowed to talk spoilers for that game?
It's a 20-something-year-old game. Although,
cool.
Here's the thing.
Then just a preview / spoiler. Tune in on Monday to watch Aerith die 20 minutes into the stream. Because I stopped playing on Monday right before the end of disc 1.
It's a spoiler.
So it'll literally be start the game, boss fight, Aerith dies, switch discs.
So it's a spoiler, but it's a spoiler for a game that was made 24 years ago. I think the moratorium on that one's run up.
All right, good. So tune in for that. But I've been pretty much the only games that I've been playing consistently daily have been Mario's Super Picross on Nintendo Switch Online, SNES Online, whatever they call that platform. Which I'm getting very close to the end of that game.
Okay, we're done talking about Final Fantasy VII, right?
Yeah, we're done talking about Final Fantasy VII. And I've been playing, still getting my like daily 20 to 30 minutes of Animal Crossing in, which is good because they announced a bunch of stuff in the last few days coming to that game. And then, between Final Fantasy, Earthbound, and Dragon Quest VII, I am, finding time here and there to play each of those games. But once I'm done with at least one of them, I am not adding any more JRPGs back into my rotation for a while. I am very quickly getting burnt out running 3 consecutive or concurrent RPGs that are not at all the same.
So burning out on RPGs over there. I'm picking up more RPGs over here. Frostbite, what are you playing right now?
So I mean, like you said, I'm also playing the Final Fantasy VII remake. I have never played the original game, so this is all new for me. I mean, I think I've heard some spoilers over the years. As you said, it's a pretty old game at this point, but I'm trying to keep it as fresh as possible, for myself.
Well, the fun thing is any of the spoilers that we might have discussed probably aren't happening in that game that you're playing anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
All the more reason that I don't want to hear it. But
it's okay. It'll take Square like 3 years for you to get to the next to the next part of that game, and even then, I don't think that they can possibly get to the end of PS1 Disc 1 with another with remake part 2.
No idea.
Because I'm like 20, 28, 30 hours into FF7, and I'm only just getting to the end of Disc 1, and Midgar was 4 hours of that. So
I think I'm like 24 hours. I just passed a day playtime in the remake. I'm in chapter 12, I believe.
Yeah, that's about where I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, they basically took 5 hours of original game and blew it up into 30 hours or something like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like Cloud Strife Friend Zone Simulator.
If it makes you feel better, that's what the original's like too.
No, that's not true. He doesn't talk anywhere near as much in the original.
That's true.
He's just like he's half the time that you get speaking options in the original FF7, it's like, answers the question or I don't want to talk about this, and then just awkward silence.
Yeah.
No, that's the remake too, though.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to talk about this, or he just kind of
pretty funny. It's pretty funny, actually. I love how like all the other characters sort of like make fun of it a little bit.
Yeah, they definitely do.
Roll their eyes at Cloud. Pretty good. But other than that, what else am I playing? I picked up Cyber Shadow, which came out yesterday. Played that on stream a couple hours last night.
Yeah, I saw you play a little bit of that. How is that?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm enjoying it so far. think there's an obvious comparison to make with the Messenger, because that's the other indie Ninja Gaiden clone that came out recently. Um, there were some things I did not like about the Messenger that Cyber Shadow does a lot better. Particularly like not really completely sticking to the the sort of true pixel art representation. Um, Doing stuff with like rotating or scaling pixels and stuff like that. That always really bugs me in those games. That's probably just my own
Did the
neuroses
messenger
speaking. But
strictly stick to those?
no, Cyber Shadow
Oh,
sticks to
Cyber
that
Shadow
stuff,
does.
but
Okay.
the Messenger did not. Like there were a couple boss fights where they would like zoom out, and now all of a sudden your 240p has become 400p or something. When it's
480,
which to me is like a
probably.
little bit jarring because it doesn't really make sense in the
Yeah.
whole. If you're trying to convince me that it's like a retro 8-bit game, I don't know. That's
It's like
definitely
retro.
Well, I
with-
mean,
with
I mean,
extras.
Shovel Knight did similar things, right? Like they had parallax scrolling, which just
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a thing on the NES, even though the game looks like it's
Yeah, but they didn't, like, I call it pixel cheating. They didn't pixel cheat. Like it was still 1 pixel is 1 pixel.
okay. Fair
That
enough.
scale never changes. Pixels don't turn or rotate on your screen. Like that one
Yeah,
is like,
that's the
ugh,
weirdest
I hate that.
thing.
The Messenger did stuff like that. And then the Messenger I also felt like just didn't really take itself seriously enough. It was very like, haha, we're just an indie game. Video games are silly. It's like, I don't know, for like a Ninja Gaiden thing like that, I feel like that doesn't really fit.
That's fair.
Yeah. Uh but yeah, so Cyber Shadow in that way like gets those things does those things better in my opinion, but there were some like kind of, it has issues with this sort of like pacing of the difficulty. I think there are a lot of parts in it so far where I was just like breezing right through, like total autopilot, like
Yeah.
super easy mode, and then all of a sudden you walk through a door and it's like crazy hard, and it's like, whoa, what
Oh, I
happened?
clipped something on your stream the other night where I think the game indicated to you that you had like switched on a laser, but you didn't stick around on the screen long enough to notice it, and so you walked through a door and immediately
Just
jumped into the
get
laser.
blasted. Yeah,
Like, and it was just like dead.
yeah.
No warning, just dead.
Watch out for that
Yeah.
laser.
Yeah.
There's a lot of there's a bunch of like instant kill stuff like that. Sorry, my cat is taking the camera.
That happens.
Anyway, yeah, so Cyber Shadow, what else am I playing? I mean, I've been playing Sea of Thieves with some friends online, which is a good time.
Oh, yeah.
I picked up the Game Pass for $1 for
Yep.
3 months, and we've been playing that.
I went down the Sea of Thieves route a few months ago with some people from another Discord channel.
Yeah.
And I got very quickly bored of Sea of Thieves, to be honest.
It does get a little bit samey, I will admit.
There is something endearing, though, about being a swashbuckling pirate. As far as
Yeah,
pirates
but
go, it's
I
really
think my
dead
problem
on.
is I don't want to do that with other people.
You gotta have a crew.
Yeah, but
They
that's what
just-
single player pirate games are for.
They also just announced that they're adding seasons to the game, like what do you call it? Like a battle pass sort of season thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Like a lot
that
of
might help spice it
a
up
lot of
little.
MOBAs do that.
Yeah.
It keeps the games going for a long time. And Sea of Thieves, whatever we think about it, it's very popular. It's got, and it's fairly family friendly too. So it's, as far as pirates go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably going to be Rare's sole output for like the next however many years.
They've got another
Just
game.
because-
They have another game in development.
Yeah, they do, don't they?
Yeah.
What was that game? It's not Cana. It's the other one about being in the wilderness
Ever
with
something?
magic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you got it right. I remember seeing the trailer for it, but I haven't.
But it's one of
actually-
those things where it just takes up so much of their resources that you won't get to see them pumping out new releases as regularly as they used to.
But they haven't been the Rare we grew up with for a long time.
No,
Like,
no, but
know.
they assisted in a lot of IP renewals in the last generation.
Oh, that's true, but I like it. Might not be the Rare we grew up with, but like I said, Sea of Thieves has quite a community, so I don't want to knock it. Might not be for me. I'm glad people have fun with it. To each their own.
Yeah, fair enough.
Is Rare doing the Perfect Dark reboot?
They are
not.
They're not the developers.
Okay.
And they were not the developers, if I remember correctly, for the Killer Instinct reboot or the fuck, what was the other one? Battletoads, where like they were hinted at being involved in each of these games briefly, and then were confirmed to not be at all linked to them. I'll see if I can find something about that and post it on the Discord. But pretty much like if there was a 90s early aughts revival, they were always linked to it first. And you know,
Yeah.
they aren't that studio anymore.
Oh, we got bots.
Yeah, we got bots.
Banned.
Oh, you got there first. I was looking for the ban button.
Cool. Well, lots of games that we're currently playing. You know, if you ever want to play anything with us, by all means, guys, join the Discord. We like to play with other people too. So, maybe not Sea of Thieves, but definitely open to multiplayer experiences. With that, I thought we'd segue on a little bit. Lots of interesting news has been happening in the gaming world the past week and a half or so. You know, game stocks notwithstanding. That's a whole thing. But
yeah, what's the deal? What is it? I saw that headline.
I can give you the TLDR. I don't want to get too into it because I don't know how much I understand about investment banking. But basically, a whole bunch of Reddit people decided that they wanted to stick it to big name investors, and so they basically artificially pumped the value of GameStop stock.
They shorted the stock.
Yeah.
They intentionally built it up. Investment bankers were like, we're getting in on this, and then they all sold their stock.
It's basically exactly what happened. They basically tried to screw over the bigwigs.
Is that even legal?
That's actually that's the question right now. It's not a matter of is it legal on itself. It's is there something nefarious behind it? And the answer is yes, the FCC is probably investigating it.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too into that right now.
The legality is kind of murky because there's no insider trading there, right? They didn't
I suppose so.
have knowledge of like a growing stock that they then invested in. They actively took a shitty stock and all pumped into it all at once.
What they fear might have happened is that somebody was prompting it from the shadows and was the trigger to try and basically make a profit, and that is illegal. So
yeah,
right, of course.
So that's what I was saying. Let's leave it to the government to figure that one out. My favorite bit of news this week was Xbox. I have been, you know, people who know me, they know that I'm actually a huge proponent of Microsoft's in the past few years, not just in the Xbox division. A company I used to really not like so much, I feel like has really tried to listen to their consumers a lot over the past few years. You know, speaking as a software engineer, they've done a lot of good stuff there as well. Really bought into the open source community, and when it comes to gaming and Xbox, they've decided that we care about players and not about ourselves as much. And I think they've probably taken a financial hit for it. But that's why I always push Game Pass as like this amazing value. But this week,
we'll get into that.
Yeah, this week was in an effort to try and drive people towards Game Pass. That's exactly what this was. They basically doubled the price of the stock Xbox Live Gold membership. It effectively doubled it. The uproar was insane. Like, I've never seen so many people turn on Microsoft so fast because, like I said, all the stuff I've been saying, people like that too. To their credit, to Xbox's credit, within a day, they reversed the decision.
So I guess the context that a lot of people lack when they hear about this is that the pricing between Xbox Live Gold and PS Plus for a year is at about parity.
It's about $10 difference.
It depends on the region, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's at about parity. Like it's pretty close. The change proposed would have put the price of PS Plus at 12 months equal to the price of Xbox Live Gold for 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. The whole double.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been double the price of PS Plus.
Now,
which at the time of their announcement, both PS Plus and Games with Gold provide you free games every month. But the value was, especially with the PS Plus collection that exists for PS5 owners, the value is clearly higher for PlayStation consumers, which really also did not help the standpoint for Microsoft here.
The value's higher if
Oh.
if you can get a PS5, which
But the assumption is that if their pricing structure doesn't change, then it would be the equivalent of having something like Game Pass caked into Xbox Live Gold.
So this was what the problem was. It wasn't the competition. It was the fact that by raising the price of Xbox Live Gold, the difference in price between Gold and Ultimate for a year was like nothing. The idea was to push people towards Game Pass, and not everybody wants Game Pass. I can't for the life of me figure out why, but not everybody wants Game Pass. Not everyone wants Game Pass, so that's what kind of pissed people off. Like I said, I thought this was interesting because, to their credit, they reversed it very fast, and I'm gonna keep going on good guy Microsoft for a while.
Yeah,
I'm gonna ride that train.
I didn't. I saw I saw the headlines about it, and was kind of just like, oh, that's kind of interesting, but I didn't really read super into it. But the fact that they reversed it so quickly is a little bit sus. I guess you could, like, it almost makes me think that they did that on, like, they were purposely like, hey, let's feel this out, and we're prepared to pull back on it if it you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
for them to be
They
able
were
to
ready.
get that done so quickly, I don't know. It's kind of weird.
I guess time will tell on that one. What other headlines have you guys seen this week?
So I've got a fun one. I don't know if you've been following Nintendo's Twitter at all over the last few weeks. They've had this challenge going on for Super Mario 35 because, of course, that game is only technically available until March of this year.
For whatever reason.
And so something they had, I think it was like they wanted players to defeat a total of 3.5 million Bowsers. Which sounds like a lot.
Sounds ridiculous. I'm just gonna throw that out there. That sentence sounds ridiculous.
So 3.5. They're alluding to the 35, whatever. The challenge ended today. Players defeated a total of 5,363,696 Bowsers.
That's a lot of Bowsers.
And as a reward, everyone got 350 My Nintendo Platinum points. So I believe that's total across the entire playtime of Mario 35. I don't think it was within a certain time range. So check your accounts. You probably, if you played Mario 35 at least once, you probably have earned some free platinum points. But yeah, that number is just crazy to me. Like, first of all, how many people are still playing Mario 35 that frequently they hit that number? But also, like, that's an incredible number of enemy kills.
Like I said, that's a lot
I don't know.
Bowsers.
Like, you gotta divide it by 35. Like, you got 35 people playing. If everyone defeats one Bowser, that's 35 Bowsers per game already. And I don't know about you guys, but when I played that, I probably defeated several Bowsers in any given run. So
yeah, and one game lasts 10 minutes maybe. So
yeah,
I mean, I could see it. Still a lot of Bowser.
Mind you, there are, probably a lot of players would have dropped out before even reaching a Bowser, but still, it's like
probably many didn't play long enough with the game to even see a Bowser. And of course, we're not even counting the fact that the game's only available to people who have Nintendo Switch Online, right?
Yeah.
So they're already limiting their available player pool. But I thought, yeah, that's like we're not going to hear about this game again probably after March. So cool little piece of news about it.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that game up because it reminded me that I wanted to talk to you guys about the whole 35th anniversary thing. Um, with that, with the Mario 35 stuff coming to an end, do you think we're going to see a similar Zelda 35 celebration in 2021?
We will see something. You know, if you go back to the last couple anniversaries that we've had, 30, 25 for Mario, we always had something Zelda. But I also generally think that Nintendo does not give Zelda the same due that they give Mario. So people are already talking about, oh, we're going to see that same Zelda collection. You're going to see the Zelda All Stars with, you know, 3D All Stars. You're going to get Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, Skyward Sword remasters.
You're
They're
not
all
going to see that.
You're going to see none of that. You might see a couple. You might see Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask drop as individual titles on eShop. That's because Nintendo's going to milk them if they do it. You know, you might see a couple things. They might try and bring the HD remakes that they did on Wii U over.
Yeah,
it's
I
tough.
think they'll do that.
There's some things that they actually have to redo, especially from Wind Waker HD if they do it.
Because of the extra screen.
Well,
it's the Miiverse functionality.
The Miiverse stuff. Twilight Princess has it too with the stamps.
Yeah.
Apparently,
so
the
Mario 3D World,
3D World has stamps as well.
The stamps are easier.
The stamps were replaced with something else. I don't remember what.
So but actually, I know what they did with that. I read about it. For 3D World, all they did is you still get stamps, but instead of using them in Miiverse, they added a photo mode where you can add stamps to your photos.
That's I think I'd read about that the other day.
Yeah. So I will say the stamps are easier. The big one for those who played the HD version of Wind Waker is when they redid Wind Waker, they actually had to take a function that was GameCube specific and redo it for Wii U, and that was the Tingle Tuner, which was used with the Game Boy Advance stuff. We're gonna actually get to some of that, I think. But
please, I hope so.
They on Wii U they replaced it with a Tingle Bottle, which served a very different purpose, but it allowed a full Miiverse connectivity that was actually seamless into the game. It's the best Miiverse functionality in any Wii U title, in my opinion. It's opinion based, but
it's a low bar.
I think Mario Maker had better,
perhaps, but Miiverse now doesn't exist. It's been shut down, and that was a pretty big part of Wind Waker HD. So if they bring that for Zelda 35, they would have to do something surrounding that functionality in the game, and there was some weird stuff that you could do with that. Trying to keep us moving. Other Zelda stuff, you're going to see something. I think you're going to see a re-release of Skyward Sword this year. I think that's the only one that I would say that people are rumoring about that's going to happen. It's easy to adapt to Switch with the motion controls, and people have been clamoring for it, which means they know that there's money involved. They can sell it for a $79 price tag in Canada.
Probably.
So I was talking to a friend about this just the other night. I think Skyward Sword deserves a re-release, and I would love to see that. I also don't know how they would even do it because it was all about the Wii Motion Plus, right?
It was about motion control. And
no, it was the Motion Plus.
You couldn't play it without the Wii Motion Plus, isn't that right?
Right.
But the game came with one of the first iterations of a Wiimote with the Motion Plus built into it.
Yes.
But the Wii Motion can do that with Joy-Cons.
Correct.
But they would not. I don't believe that they would release a game that requires you to play with the Joy-Cons separate in your hand.
They already did.
Are you talking about Odyssey?
No, I'm talking about One Switch. So
okay, but that's hardly even a game. That's like
okay. No. But to be fair, there have been one or two games. You can't play Super Mario Party with anything other than the single Joy-Con.
I think my point is more. I can see them doing it. They might have to make some adaptation. They might try and bring parts of it in that don't require motion control and make the game a little bit more friendly, maybe. But Skyward Sword is actually, if the internet is to be believed, and I believe everything on the internet, that there's a lot of money there. If Nintendo can do it, they'll do it because it's. I mean, look at 3D World, 3D All Stars. I meant, um, they slap a price tag on old games and they sell like hotcakes. It's Nintendo. It's the Nintendo
Yeah,
business model.
but that, I mean, yeah, again, like to use your point, look at 3D All Stars. That showed us that they can easily port GameCube and Wii games and Nintendo 64 games to make them playable on the Switch. None of that points to a playable Skyward Sword, at least not one that they could do without a whole bunch of changes. Like they could easily port, they could just pop the practically just pop the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess ports right on there. Like, sure, they'd have to change the tingle stuff. I don't know, but especially the Twilight Princess one, I don't think would be that tough for them to do. And then throw in throw
Maybe
Ocarina and Majora's Mask into a collection, or make them separate, like just like they did with Mario 64.
Whatever your thoughts, ABC, are on this, you and I both know that Ocarina of Time will be the bestseller, and that with Nintendo will never miss an opportunity to repackage it.
I have two hot takes here. One, there will not be a release for the Zelda anniversary. There won't be, and it's because Eiji Aonuma is busy with the Breath of the Wild sequel.
You don't need.
And hold on, and the trend with Japanese developers is that they don't like doing things with their old games unless the original creators are involved in them. I know that Square Enix has actually like come out and talked about this in the past, and I know that it's a common thing with other devs in Japan, where like they'll say, "Oh, we re-released this game and this game, but not that one because I didn't work on it. It's not mine to touch. I don't feel right doing an update of it." And the reason that that Mario is so easy to do is because Tanabe is so heavily involved in everything Mario, and he's actually involved in a bunch of different development teams. But pretty much from Ocarina of Time onward, it's all Aonuma. I think if you do see anything Zelda related, you see something using the Link's Awakening engine again. You see another one of those old games, like the Game Boy games, ported. I don't think you see the 3D games make a re-release. I think Nintendo holds off on those until something like an N64 online emulation system. I do think, however, that of all of the Nintendo IP celebrating anniversaries this year, we see a Kirby collection. Because HAL Labs has celebrated Kirby probably the most out of any Nintendo IP consistently. Like, the last time that, prior to 3D All Stars, the last time that Mario got a real anniversary game was on the Wii, and it was like a year or so apart from the Kirby collection, and the Kirby collection was bar none like a more feature complete love letter to the franchise, and the Mario collection was just Super Mario All Stars for the SNES slapped on a Wii disc and nothing more. But
Well,
the Kirby Wii collection had a bunch of games, a bunch of extra content built from the ground up for the collection, and a whole museum section.
Not spend too much time on speculation. I'll just say one other piece of evidence towards getting something is that they have basically ported over every Wii game at this point, major seller.
Yeah.
And the only two that are really
Except
missing.
the two Zelda
besides Xenoblade,
games.
only two are missing, as Frost mentioned, are the two Zelda games. So
Yeah, exactly.
Star Fox.
Nobody
big
cares.
sellers.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Any other news we want to cover?
I mean, there was a cool Resident Evil presentation, but I don't think you guys really watched it, did you?
I watched it.
I did.
I watched it.
I did. I have not tried the demo yet, though.
The game didn't look as visually impressive to me as I thought it would.
It's because it's not a next gen game.
Pretty good.
It did look pretty good, but it's also not a next gen game.
Well, let me rephrase that. Compared to Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil Remake 2 and 3, the game looks on par with those, which
It's the same engine.
Well, yes, but sorry, it looks on par with them because it looks like a game from the previous generation.
But it is a game from the
And
previous generation. It is not an exclusive next gen game. It is being simultaneously launched on PS4.
I get that. The presentation should have used footage of the next gen game, and it did not seem like they did.
I think they did. So maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just
Also, don't forget the game's not done. I
oh
don't.
yeah,
Just saying, don't judge. Sometimes
when's it
change.
coming out again?
May.
Okay, so like this is usually around the time where you would think that they would put out their best visual foot to hook people, right? And I don't a lot of the response I saw, especially on Twitter, a little bit on Reddit, was generally middling. Kind of people not as excited anymore after the presentation. Now, you know something.
That's not what I was seeing at all. I don't know who you're following.
I will say by comparison, things like the Monster Hunter presentation that Capcom put out, so you know, also Capcom, was much better received.
Well, you know, again, game it's not out yet. I like to give devs the benefit of the doubt. I didn't see any negative feedback. I actually saw mostly positive stuff, but I didn't dive into the bowels of Reddit, which is not always the
if you go to the
place.
If you go to the Resident Evil subreddit right now, it is 99% people going apeshit about the big and tall lady. How much they love the big and tall lady. I don't know what the deal is, but yeah, everyone's nuts about it.
They've got a thing for the big and tall lady.
Yeah,
I hope it doesn't awaken something.
I know. Is that a community reference?
That is
was a community
reference.
Nice.
I'm actually interested in this one. I haven't played a Resident Evil game in years, but you know, this one, it looks good to me, and I might be looking for something new on the PS5. So
you might want to play. I mean, I don't know. It's up to you whether you do or not. But this one seems to tie closely in with the story from Resident Evil 7. So it might be a good idea to play that one first. But
I have to add it to the list.
You do you. I think it's actually on the PS Plus collection, so you can play it for free.
Well then, now I have no excuses. All right. Well, that was a nice little capture of news for the week. I am sure there's lots of other stuff, guys. Feel free to, ask us about our opinions in chat or in Discord or on Twitter or wherever you like to communicate with us. We have opinions on everything that came out this week, but there's just not enough time to talk about it all. We do want to get to our main topic for today. We've been talking a lot about, we actually did touch on it a little bit just now. From where the gaming industry started all the way back in the 70s. We've seen a lot of innovation that has taken really control of the industry where we are now. Some of it has had a lot of staying power, some of it has not, and we are now seeing the emergence of several new innovations that might change the scope of gaming, or might not. I thought we'd start out with just to kind of do a quick run through history of stuff that really has changed things. And the first one I want to start with, we've been on here a bit. We wouldn't be anywhere. We would not have this guy right here if it wasn't for Nintendo's innovation. And I'm flexing because I know these are hard to find too. But, this is, I think, the culmination of Nintendo's innovation over the past, however, what year is it now? 2021. So we're talking 35 years in the gaming industry. And I do mean gaming industry, so I know Nintendo's.
How dare you not acknowledge their gambling history that dates back over a century?
I am not acknowledging that. This is a gaming podcast. So Nintendo really is the innovator in this industry. Xbox and PlayStation controllers have looked the same since their first iterations. Nintendo, not so much. I mean, every so often their controllers sort of gain, cancerous growths that you don't know what to do with. Or they end up basically dialing all the way back down to the Wii. So I'd like to start at the Game Boy. I think the Game Boy is in of itself one of the most interesting technological advancements of the entire gaming industry. I don't think we'd have mobile gaming, where people are playing Candy Crush on their phones if it wasn't for the Game Boy. Like, I really don't.
Wait, the Game Boy, not the Game & Watch.
I'm gonna say the Game Boy, and there's a reason
Okay.
why. There's a reason why. So the Game & Watch is it's nice that you brought the Game & Watch. We had mobile things, but they're you have to buy the one that what I mean. It's like one game, right? You buy
you buy one unit. It's got one game. The
and
Game Boy really changed that up.
if you go ask a lot of casual gamers today what a Game & Watch is, they're not gonna know. My mother still calls
It's the blue dude who turns into an octopus in Smash Bros.
Right,
yeah,
that
it's
guy.
the guy from Smash Bros, right?
But I can like if my mother still calls my DS and my 3DS, when I was in high school, whatever. She used to call those Game Boys,
Game
right?
Boy.
But she couldn't tell
Yeah.
me what a Game & Watch is. That alone says it all,
yeah,
right?
that's a good point.
So
The household name.
it's a household name, and it seems so simple, really crude graphics, very simple display. Not even there's no color on the original game, and yet the games that are on that system are memorable, and more importantly, and I have a Game Gear sitting in a closet somewhere, right? That it shows the colors and everything. I could take that thing and it would last on 4 AA batteries for a few days. I think that as far as innovation goes, that is one of the greatest. Was Nintendo's foray into true foray into mobile gaming. Was the Game Boy.
So as you pointed out, the excuse me, the Game Boys. So the Game Boy was not the first handheld gaming device. Obviously, we already brought up Game & Watch. It was it. I'm genuinely not sure about this, but I feel like one of you guys will know. Was it the first handheld gaming device that allowed you to play multiple games by swapping game cards?
I'm not actually 100% sure. I didn't do explicit research about that.
I know a piece of trivia about that, but not the answer to that exact question. It's very related though, which is that Gunpei Yokoi did not initially want it to have interchangeable cartridges. He wanted it to just be a next level of the Game & Watch. And Nintendo effectively said, no, the Famicom is selling really well. Like, do this.
And
Smart.
to his credit, they were smart. They
Yeah.
understand, right?
Makes sense.
I will say I don't know if it's the first, but it's certainly prominent.
Yeah.
There are other handheld systems that popped up in the subsequent years as well. You had things. Was it Atari Jaguar? Is that the right one?
No. Lynx.
Lynx. Thank you. Big
Yeah.
cats. Come on.
And I mean the Game & Watch in some sense lived on through Tiger Electronics devices, which were
Yeah.
more
yeah.
LCD panel games, that single screen games that very much were like Game & Watches,
Right.
if
Just
not
with
a little
none
bit
of the
bulkier.
charm.
Yeah.
But I would say
Yeah.
I would say that mobile gaming in of itself doesn't take a lot of inspiration from these other places. It takes it from Game Boy, and all these little side shoots. They also tried to compete, and they all sort of fizzled out in the end of the day. Even into more of the modern era, PSP, PlayStation Vita, not bad systems, decent games, and yet Sony's not making any more handheld consoles. So
the most interesting part of the mobile development for games handhelds was that weird period in the 16-bit era where everyone was like, you know what, we're just going to make a handheld version of the home game console. So you had like the Turbo Express and the Sega Nomad, and it was just like, plug your Genesis cartridge into this and take it on the go. It lasts longer than a Game Gear.
right.
Yeah.
I
cool
have a Game
idea.
Gear. I also have a wall outlet thing for it, so I don't have to put
Everyone
6
did.
AA batteries in it because it chews through those batteries like nuts. Now, I mean, I want to keep this topic moving. So, whereas you have Nintendo innovating with Game Boy, their next one didn't do so well. I'm going to touch very briefly on this because I know we're going to get a little bit more into our modern innovations in a little while, but let's not forget that Nintendo was the very first. Well, not the very first, but really early adopters of VR. Nintendo. Let's see if I get a seizure from the red, polygons flying at me, right? I would love to get a Virtual Boy, get my hands on a Virtual Boy. To be perfectly honest with you, I feel like there's just something to be said about having that. I think my wife would kill me. There's no reason to have that take up space in my home. But my God, do I ever want a Virtual Boy?
So my friend Intoxicatious, I think, has one, or used to. I don't know if he still has it. I don't know if he's still in chat, but yeah, I wonder if he still got that thing. I've tried it out a little bit. I don't know if have you guys ever tried
I've tried
I
it
played
once.
with the Virtual Boy
Once,
Yeah.
yes.
I've played with it a few times. There's actually a Consolizer mod for it, so you can have it do, I think it's VGA video out, so you can play that on a TV in grayscale.
How does that work though? Because I guess they just give you one of the two feeds?
Yeah, something like that, because it spits out, I believe it spits out the same feed, and it's just a distancing of the mirrors within the headset normally that creates the 3D effect. It's not polarized the same way that like
There would have to
3DS
be
video
two
is.
slightly different perspectives to give you the effective depth,
It's
right?
possible, yeah. I remember learning about how the Virtual Boy worked, because it wasn't so much VR as it was strapping a screen to your face.
Well, isn't that all VR?
What's the
really
difference?
is? Okay,
Well,
let's hold on VR.
No,
We'll get there.
it had the virtual part. It didn't have the reality part. Right?
I guess.
What reality do you live in now? Let's hold a little bit more on VR. I do want to just talk. Really, I brought up Virtual Boy because it was innovative, but nobody wanted it, right? So why? Why didn't it sell? That's my question. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but it shows that innovation isn't everything, right?
So knowing the history of the system tells you first why the system existed, but also why it failed, which is it came out in a time when technologies were advancing so rapidly that if you had manufacturing delays or production delays, development delays, whatever it was in your next system, and you weren't putting out the next latest and greatest thing, your competitors were taking the space from you. And that's what happened to Nintendo. The Ultra 64 was already well into development, and
Which was the Nintendo 64.
which eventually became the Nintendo 64. And it had development delays, and their competitors had said, like, yeah, the Sega Saturn and the Sony PlayStation are coming, and they are going to be, that next latest and greatest device. And Nintendo said, "Oh yeah, well we already have the Virtual Boy. It's here and ready to go. Go rent it at your nearest Blockbuster or Funko Land or whatever game store you got near you." And it clearly wasn't a step up from anything. Maybe it was a step up from the Game Boy, but it wasn't a step up from the Super Nintendo, which it was supposed to be kind of superseding there, and it didn't compare to what was being previewed for the Saturn or the PlayStation. So
yeah, well, it was a specific gimmick, right? It was like,
yeah, and
the
of course,
graphics, obviously it doesn't look hyper realistic or anything, but it was
and the magazines were still pushing the 64 as coming soon.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. So all right, so you mentioned. Okay, so we have this gimmick. Okay, this is good. So a gimmick that nobody really wanted, I guess, the best way to put it. In this case, there was better technology. But here's an interesting one. So Nintendo, again, master of gimmicks, does it 2006 with the Wii. Now this is one of those. Yeah. This is one of those innovations, for better or for worse, that's still around today, right?
Yeah.
The motion control still exists. Every console has something of it now. Nintendo more than others, but we'll hit VR in a little bit, but really plays into it. But motion control was, by the Wii. I mean, the Wii is one of the best-selling consoles of all time, right? Not number one, but it's up there.
Pretty close.
They hit it, and then Xbox and PlayStation come up with their answers, and nothing, right? Nobody cares. I mean, Xbox discontinued the Kinect that they were packaging with the Xbox One. right? I have a Kinect for the Xbox One that never gets used. Right? So what the hell happened there? Why is it that that innovation worked for Nintendo but nobody else?
Um, well, I'll tell you what I think about it. Uh, I think it was a few different factors. The Nintendo Wii was the cheapest console of that generation,
Right.
and I think that the low price and the approachable controller, um, and the motion controls were very well suited to casual players. You had like grandparents that are that are playing like Wii bowling. Um,
Yeah.
and then you look at the Xbox with the Kinect. Um, it's a bit harder to set up. It's a bit more finicky. Uh, it requires more space to really use properly.
Yeah.
It's more expensive, and the entire console, the entire package, does not appear, uh, like casual friendly or like beginner friendly. I think that's I think that's really the difference in my mind. Is like the Xbox and the PlayStation were more for core gamers. Uh and core gamers didn't really care that much about motion controls.
No, they really didn't. I mean, look, I was a Nintendo guy growing up. I bought right into the Wii. And I loved the
Oh, I
Wii.
got one
I,
right
I
away.
I mean, I loved it, but I defended it against other consoles too forever. I still love Nintendo, but if I have an option to turn off the motion controls, I almost always do now.
Mhm.
So I've got a memory of the Wii that is not motion control related when they first announced it, and that was, all of the press was not going to the motion controls. The big thing when Nintendo like they announced the Revolution, which eventually became the Wii, was, hey, this thing is going to play all your old games digitally. Because Nintendo wasn't really sure what the selling point to this thing was initially. They're like, it's a virtual console box. Like, you're gonna buy NES and SNES and N64 games all in one place, and this controller is versatile and allows you to quickly switch between these modern motion control games. And hey, turn it sideways and it's an NES controller,
Ugh,
and
it's
plug in the classic
so
controller,
uncomfortable
and
to play with that thing.
right, and actually for the longest time, a sideways Wii remote has been my go-to wireless NES controller.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, because it's so easy to sync with Bluetooth devices.
yeah.
But
Okay.
but that was one of the big selling points, and because they weren't sure if motion was going to be the next big thing, it was kind of caked into everything. But they said, well, if it doesn't sell like this, maybe it'll sell as a virtual box for all these old systems, or if that doesn't work, it'll be a great distribution place for all these little what eventually became WiiWare, the little indie developed games that could be
Yeah,
published here for like $5.
Yeah,
Digital distribution was a new thing for Nintendo, or a new-ish thing for Nintendo.
it was interesting because the other console, this was around the time digital distribution really took off. Another, another innovation that we'll touch on again in a little bit, as the internet really came into play. But Nintendo did it differently, where it was, you're not going to buy, Twilight Princess for Wii digitally, but you are going to buy Super Mario World and Ocarina of Time. I mean, I bought it in a virtual console. Still wish they
Oh,
had a
yeah.
virtual console.
I know. Yeah, that was Virtual Console was great. I think like because they had such a well loved library of games from older consoles. Like that was definitely a selling point. Yeah, like I get that's I think one of the reasons the Wii was as successful as it was is because it appealed to both crowds, right? You had the casual gamers that could get into like the Wii Sports and stuff like that, but then the people who had been gaming for 20 years of their life could get into the virtual console. It was like,
Right.
here are all these old classics, and you can have them for a couple bucks each and
Uh,
play them all in
and
one place.
I think if you look at Nintendo's track record for consoles, and for handhelds, you can tell where they felt unsure of their next technological innovation, because those systems all had virtual consoles. right? The Wii, the Wii U, and the 3DS all had the same format for Virtual Console.
Yeah.
And for the DSi, I guess as well had DSi where it didn't have Virtual Console, but they all had those small digital distribution, mostly old titles, some new indie developed titles, all under this one heading of Virtual Console or WiiWare. And here you can have it for, $5 to $7 a piece. Um, and that's going to be an additional selling point because we're not sure if the motion controls or asynchronous gameplay or 3D on a handheld is going to be a selling point.
Right. Yeah, Nintendo, they definitely are known to take risks. That innovation is what's going to drive the industry forward, even when it falls flat on its face. Wii U. And
But yeah, actually, speaking of the Wii U, like I think something that what they did wrong with the Wii U, why the Wii U was so unsuccessful, was partially I really think the naming hurt them on that
oh
because
yeah,
a lot of people just didn't really get what it was. Like they thought it was like, oh, this is a tablet controller for the Wii, and they did the people didn't know this. No, this is a brand new console with it's like more powerful. It's got new games and stuff, but also, um, I think they made the mistake of thinking that all of these people, these non-gamers that bought into the Wii, were now going to jump onto the Wii U, and
right.
those people are going to be like, "Well, I already have the Wii, so I don't need this." And
Right.
I
I
think that's
have my
really
Wii
what
Fit.
happened. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think the Wii U was. Actually, I should rather say it this way: is that the Switch is what the Wii U should have been. Um,
Mhm.
they kind of pushed the biggest selling point for me, the Wii U, was that I could, my wife could sit there and watch television while I was sitting there playing it on the tablet.
Yeah.
But people who had a Wii U and it worked, great. And a lot of
Mhm.
the games were made for these dual screens that then when you went to a single screen, it didn't work quite right. Um, without getting too into it, the Switch is what it always should have been. Fully, truly next gen gaming, but mobile. Um, and I like that. Like I said, Nintendo has shown they know how to drive this industry forward with innovation. Um, I want to get into some of these other topics here and just talk about what the internet has done for gaming. We talked about the digital distribution, um, which I think is it's made gaming more accessible. A game that sells out of stores, you could just buy it online, buy it
Or if
digitally.
there's a global pandemic, you can just
Right. I haven't had to go to an EB Games or GameStop in forever, which is and they were all going to go out of business until today. And but it's been nice, and that's why when I actually bought my PS5, I bought the digital edition. I don't care, and I know some people do, and I mean that's fine, that's great. People want their physical media, they want their collections, and I have no problem with that. But for me, it really works into my life where you saw this on PC gaming first with Steam, but I see no reason not to have it digital.
All right, so I don't know which one of us
let's
wants
hear
to
it.
jump in here. Both of us have our big stacks of games
I
behind
do.
us.
Mine's just on the other side of the room.
And Caberns has
I have games over here.
but obviously some of us are certainly very much into having our physical collections, even if we do digitize them. But the for some people, having that physical piece of media that they can say, like, if the service ever goes down, I will still have access to this. um or one day this game will only be playable in this format, or there's all sorts of reasons I think that I can rationalize for having uh certain games or many games physical. But I'm also the guy who just bought more CDs, so maybe I'm not the best example
Yeah.
of this. But like there, I feel this way sometimes about digital distribution, where like before the Mega Man Legacy Collection came out, um the most recent one, the one that had uh 7, 8, and 9 and 10 on it. Because the original collection had 1 through 6. The only ways to get Mega Man 9 and 10 were through these digital distribution networks that are shut down. That they're that they don't that you can't get them digitally anymore that way.
Steam's
So
not
like
shut
when
down.
when the Wii Shop shut down, I jumped on it and spent like $100 worth of Wii points, picking up all the games that I knew were not available anywhere else.
Yeah, and
Um, because like that Wii U, as long as I keep that Wii U alive and transfer it when it seems to be failing, like those games are locked to that system. They're not attached to an account. They're not like once that Wii U dies, it's dead. Those
Mhm.
games are lost. And there are games that will disappear with that. You know,
Mhm.
until recently, Scott Pilgrim on 360 was like that, right? Until it got its re-release more recently.
right.
So, you know, when I see a game that I know I like, I have to have it physically
And like I
because
said, that's fair. That's one of those to reach their own moments. Some people don't care about those games when they're lost. Some people do. I think my point was more towards the accessibility that the internet has brought us. That people can choose to. I really need a new game
Yeah.
today. I really want to play something new. But hey, I'm in a global pandemic. I can't go to the store.
yeah.
Oh, I can download Final Fantasy VII on my Switch, right? Like there's something to be said about um,
It's also a huge asset for smaller developers that can now distribute their games much more easily.
exactly indie games. The limited run games aside, they still only pick a handful. Most games that don't have these big publishers can just push it off to the Xbox store, to the PlayStation store, to Nintendo eShop, and I would say that the internet has provided a means of accessibility that we didn't have.
So I simultaneously agree and disagree that like the advent of digital sales of games meant that indie developers were suddenly making a scene that didn't exist prior to that. They're suddenly able to popularize a game that wasn't on store shelves. Um, the the modern uh, version of this though, where like AAA games can be downloaded off of Steam or off of your game consoles, has kind of pushed a lot of those indie games to the side. And unless you're a big indie game that's partnered with a
Mhm.
publisher or partnered with a console manufacturer who's going to push your game, you are on page 7 of your respective console's eShop, and you're probably not getting the same levels of success that
Yeah,
you only hear the success stories from the games that are coming from established developers or established franchises, but you never hear like, look, we were talking about Cyber Shadow before.
yeah.
Would you have known about Cyber Shadow were it not for Yacht Club publishing it?
Would I know about Yacht Club if not for
Yacht
digital
Club,
distribution?
but Yacht Club was the Kickstarter darling, right? Yacht
That's
Club,
true. That's true.
everyone knows because they were the most successful Kickstarter up until that point in time, and they actually delivered on their product,
What you have to
right?
remember though is that without Kickstarter, these things couldn't have existed. It's not a matter of do we hear the success stories. It's that the success stories wouldn't have existed without the innovation that we're talking
Exactly.
about.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what you're saying is true, but what we're saying
Now,
is
also,
true.
also, Yacht Club's a weird situation because like they are also all former Way Forward staff, so like they are when they effectively took their ball and left from Way Forward, people who were aware of them, actively promoted the fact, oh hey, this is a studio of all these old Way Forward staff, so if you like, you know, these games that they developed, you'll probably like their next venture.
Right, but some games just kind
Um,
of make it through word of mouth, and that's great. And
yeah.
sometimes, you might have a sleeper hit in there. But the fact is that the studio, which they might not be making it millions and millions and millions, but they're making enough to keep their lights on. But they still wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for the way that we have it.
Yeah, like self-publishing, self-distribution was not even
Oh yeah, no,
possible
no.
before
I'm not saying
digital distribution.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that because self-publishing moved from like that we were talking about WiiWare and Xbox Live Arcade before, because it moved from like that purely indie scene to just general storefronts. I think the direct impact on the indie scene has not necessarily been as positive as it once was. And like as consoles especially go digital only, and we're seeing that, right? Um, there's going to be a bigger push from the EAs and the Activisions and the, you know, the Ubisofts
Yeah.
to get their games front and center on every storefront front. So, you know, if Ubisoft puts out 6 games a year, if EA puts out 10 games a year, how much space is available? They're
Yeah,
gonna spend their money
that's-
putting themselves front and center as often as possible.
I have heard that from indies that visibility on those storefronts can be an issue. That's definitely it. That's definitely
Oh, yeah.
true.
It is. You know, you gotta kind of, like I said, you got sleeper hits in there. You know, some things will be discovered, some things won't be. It's a cutthroat industry. What can I say?
Oh yeah,
Um,
no, I just, you know, when we talk about digital distribution, we have to talk about the whole of it, not just like, hey, the advent of it was great, but also what does the future mean for this section of the
Yeah, I
industry?
guess we're still figuring it out. But I still think that digital distribution on the whole has been positive for indies.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. And you know, the internet has now allowed this new era of easy access to games through subscription. That's you know, where we're kind of moving into now.
yeah.
So I don't know if you have Game Pass, right, K Burns?
I do.
And I believe Frostbite, you said at the beginning that you actually just signed up for Game Pass.
Yeah, this is my second time. They had a 1 month for $1 thing before, like I think it was earlier 2020 maybe, and I grabbed it at the time for the 1 month, and then, or maybe I had it for a couple months or something, but then I ended up canceling it, and then picked it up again in December, when they had the $1 for, or 3 months for $1 thing going on. So that's still going. Yeah, I'm still on the $1.
So
Right
then
now.
I've got a question for the both of you, because I don't subscribe to any of these uh streaming game services effectively, um or subscription game services. Do you ever buy the games that you enjoy on these platforms?
I haven't, but I would if I couldn't finish it before I left. That has not happened yet. I do know people who have. It's not, you know, it depends on. It honestly depends on your habits too. Um, but I would say that it's made certain games very accessible, and it's allowed people to try games that they might normally have done. For instance, I just played Ukulele and Impossible Lair for an hour and a half a couple weeks ago. Didn't care for it personally, but I didn't want to spend $40 on it. Now I don't have to. Because
There you go.
You have to remember, it used to be, you mentioned it, we could go into Blockbuster and rent the game to decide if we liked it for 3 days. Can't do that anymore. I guess you can say that this Game Pass is the natural successor to that.
Yeah.
It is and it isn't, though, right? I mean, you think about the volume of people who get in there probably balance out the costs, but like if you rented a game for a week, that was what, 10, 12, $15 to rent a game?
Inflation.
Yeah, but
You
then
know,
how much of that was going to
how much of that was,
the
well,
store that you rented it from, to pay the employees of the store, pay the distribution of the
Sure,
physical copies.
sure, but and we know, at least on the Blockbuster front, that they were just buying out stock, because we have the history for this, that we know that they were just buying out stock from game stores. So like the game stores got theirs, Blockbuster got theirs, the individual game manufacturers got the equivalent of that one purchase the first time, and really they were the only loser of the bunch. um I imagine the deal's probably better for those who are on services like Game Pass and PS Now, and but
The thing about Game
um
Pass that makes it so good over, and I don't want to step on my toes here, Cross going to talk about it in a couple minutes. stuff like PS Now or um, Stadia, is that you don't have to stream. You can now actually with Game Pass, at least on Android devices. It's coming to PC and iPhones, I believe, later this year.
Mhm.
But you can download them, and you can have the full experience. Right? Like I was playing Dragon Quest 11 on stream through Game Pass.
Right.
Full game running natively on my PC. I played through A Plague Tale. I played through the Outer Worlds. Day one, might I add.
Yeah.
I got bored a couple weeks ago. I played some Forza Horizon. I don't play racing games, but that was like a fun 2 hours, right? Like, it's allowed. Again, might not be for everybody, but as somebody who likes to try things before they buy them and haven't had that opportunity since rental stores went down the tubes, it's nice.
I've also had I've on and off had a subscription to EA Play, formerly known as Origin Access, I think.
Yep.
I've
Yep,
had
that's
I've
the
had a
name.
subscription to that on and off for a couple years, because I think it was always only $5 a month for the base subscription. So if there was even one game on there you wanted to play, it's like pretty
It
good
was
deal.
worth it.
Yeah,
Yep.
like I picked it up, you could play Mass Effect, Titanfall, Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2. Um, I played Unravel 2 with my girlfriend, which is a fantastic couch co-op game, by the way. Um, um, yeah, like there's a lot of good stuff on there for $5. I mean, I'll crap on EA as much as the next guy, but it's a pretty good deal. Yeah, I think like and I don't know. I mean, this is kind of a weak argument, I think, but sometimes there are games that I would never have paid money to try, but because I already bought into the subscription, I was willing to give them a shot, and sometimes you end up finding something that you really enjoy because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And even at the Game Pass Ultimate, whatever, I think in Canada here it's $16.99 a month, and that can be steep, right? Now you also get, just to be clear about that, it's not just Game Pass. You get all of the Xbox Live stuff. It's like their top tier subscription, right? But if you want a game for a month, like let's say you want to play through A Plague Tale, right? Plague Tale when it came out was probably just like every other game, $79.99, but it drops on Game Pass day one. It didn't, but new games are. I could just do it on Game Pass for $16.99 a month, cancel my subscription at the end of the day, and play the entire game. So, there is some value there for some.
Mhm.
I understand the value. I think I like at least having a license of a game
Yeah.
generally,
But
but
like I said, you're not
that,
buying the game.
that's my thing. I hope that publishers continue to allow both options going forward.
But
Yeah,
you
I
can
think I
buy
would
the
agree
game.
with that. As a footnote, um, yeah, like subscription services are great. Digital distribution is great as long as it's not the only
Right.
option.
Right. And nor is it. Like if you wanted
Yeah.
to, great example is Halo Infinite is coming sometime this century, and it's going to drop on Game Pass day one. They've said that. I'm just going to play it on Game Pass. I mean, I played all the Halo games, right? I'll it's going to be on PC. I'm going to download it. I'm going to play it. If that was the only game I was going to play, great. It's basically like renting it for $16.99 a month, plus every other game I get on the damn service. Where some people might want to buy it because they're going to be really into that multiplayer and they want to own it without having to pay $16.99 a month for other games they're never going to play. So as you said, you want both options. At least for now, both options are available.
Cool.
And I do think that segues quite nicely into where Game Pass is taking us.
Yeah. So I mean, we talked about subscription services, we talked about digital distribution. I guess like the next level of this online digital landscape is streaming, game streaming services. I'm not talking about Twitch, I'm talking about playing a game that's coming through the internet to your controller. Like we're talking about Stadia is the big one right now, which is kind of funny to say, but
Stadia is like the biggest
Well, and
name, but also the biggest joke.
isn't there that Amazon one that's also in the works or
Lua.
is
Ama-
coming? or
they're all
Oh
in the
yeah,
works.
everyone's got one now.
You
Everyone's
got
got
Stadia, you got Lua. Game Pass is already doing it. Actually, the first was Sony, PS Now.
one. Well,
And there's other options, Nvidia. Can't remember.
yeah. So I mean, this is shaking up distribution, shaking up the industry and the way people think about game consoles, I guess, right? So I mean, the big question is this the future for game consoles? And the answer is no. And that's the end. No, I'm kidding.
Well, here's the question:
But,
have you tried it?
Yeah, I did. So I tried Stadia a couple nights ago because I knew we were going to be talking about this stuff. I was like, you know what? If I want to have something useful, something accurate to say about it, maybe I should try it for myself. So they now have it's available. It used to be um, available only for people who pre-order or something. Like there was some limitation on that. Now anyone can get it. You can play it in your browser, and there, you can get a 1 month free trial. So I grabbed my
Cool.
1 month free trial, decided to try it out.
How'd it run?
It actually, I had really low expectations. I'll be honest. The idea of streaming gameplay does not appeal to me very much, but it exceeded my expectations. I got to be honest. I was kind of impressed with it.
I was too. I didn't try Stadia. I the Game Pass on Android, and
Yeah.
I couldn't notice the input delay.
So I tried. Okay, so let me just talk about this briefly. The whole the dream that they're selling here with these services is you know, you don't have to buy any expensive hardware. You can play your games anywhere on all your devices. You don't have to worry about upgrading hardware ever because the hardware is owned by the host service, right? They've just got a server rack that's running all these games somewhere. uh, yeah, that's pretty much it. Play it anywhere. Don't have to worry about hardware. Don't have to worry about upgrades. And you can use your existing. You know, if you've already got controllers and stuff lying around, you can use your existing stuff. Basically, I was able to sign up for a Stadia account and just start playing immediately, completely for free, no monetary investment whatsoever, which is pretty cool. The downsides to it that I see, and that these are the common downsides to the whole idea of streaming gameplay. First of all, obviously, you have to have an internet connection. You have to be online. If your internet craps out, if you have slow internet, that's going to greatly affect the quality of your experience. So that's a big one. Latency can be a concern. Input latency, especially for certain games or certain genres of games. Like I wouldn't be on there. I wouldn't be playing Street Fighter or something like that on these things because even with a in-person console with your controller plugged in, sometimes input latency can be a concern already just with modern controllers, modern TVs. So, I don't think it's for everything. The other thing is what we were already talking about with the digital distribution, which is lack of ownership of these games, and that's an even greater concern with the streaming services because not only are you relying on a license to play these games, but you don't even get to download the game onto your system where it can be replayed. It's 100% DRM based. So I feel like these services are for a very specific type of person.
So I actually have a great jumping off from that, which is that my concerns with regards to streaming go a little bit beyond even that initial concerned about DRM, which is that we're talking about games that we brought up things that were potentially lost to the ether before. But like, if you're an exclusive title to a streaming service, and that is like, if you are a Stadia exclusive and you don't have any like, you have no other deals in place to be released anywhere else, and Stadia goes under because, you know, when
Yeah.
else has Google shut down a service?
Google shutting down a service? God, never.
Yeah, that I was going to bring
you
that
know,
up,
like
actually.
we've talked about a bunch of these services that are in place, but of the bunch who weren't already in the gaming space, Google is the one that I would expect to probably try and bring in the most potential studios developing exclusively for them. And if they go down, I don't know if any of those games survive. That, you know, they're lost to the annals of history. You know, it's like, oh, I remember playing that once. Is it possible to play it now? No, but there might be some YouTube footage of it somewhere. Like,
Yeah,
that's
well,
the best we get. Um,
I this is a lot of speculation, but I would have to believe that those games would probably be in the contract that, you know, it's an exclusive, uh they've got exclusive distribution as long as the platform lives. As long as the platform
well,
exists.
right. Except that we're talking about uh, the potential of them buying studios, right? Because like that's the thing that
Yeah.
everybody's doing these days, is buying our own studios to
Yeah.
act as like second party
Yeah.
providers. And if Google shuts down their gaming division and just says, fuck it, all the studios, we're shutting them all down, close them all out, we don't want the investment in these guys anymore, they cost us too much, you know, we're not making our returns, where do those
Yeah.
games go?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think we have the answer to that yet, and I
Yeah,
hope
No,
exactly.
I don't think we'll have the answers to that for a few years, but
But that is
um,
definitely a concern. Like you guys brought up, Google loves to shut down services. So
you know, like streaming services have been around for a while. Like OnLive, you know, was
yeah,
bought by Sony and shut down. But OnLive, to my knowledge, didn't have any exclusive developers, right? They were just effectively games that were available on PCs were also generally available via OnLive's service, and then Sony bought them and shut them down.
mhm.
like this goes into your other point earlier too, which is that it's not a problem as long as you have an option, right? So, you know, I said I tried the streaming with Game Pass. Cool, but I can download Forza on my computer as well as play it streaming, right? The same with every other game that's offered on Game Pass. Actually, some of them aren't available on streaming. It's actually more available to download than stream. Whereas your concern is with Stadia. Stadia doesn't have a download option, right?
Yeah.
So there's where your innovation starts to break a little bit, right? You can't, you know, there is no sense of any ownership. Now I know that, you know, there's DRM when I download the game too, but at least the data's on my computer. If I'm really a whiz at hacking, I can figure something. You know, not that I'm saying I should, but I could. Whereas you can't do that with Stadia, right? Like you play Destiny 2 in the cloud. It's in the cloud. You're not getting it down. I see your concerns quite valid. Right? If those studios do shut down, I hope there's a backup plan somewhere.
Yeah.
Well,
I actually have a sorry. Go ahead.
You go ahead first.
Oh, I was going to say, I actually have a question for you guys with regards to streaming platforms. Have either of you guys used PlayStation Now? Yep.
I've used it on someone else's PS4. I've seen it in action.
I did on PS4 5 years ago now.
Cool. So I don't know how familiar you are with the platform and what the games that are offered there, but there's a lot of PS3 games that are available via PS Now.
Yeah, and PS2 games.
And PS2 games. And that started on PS4, obviously, and no other way to play those games.
Well, no other way
Well,
to play it.
Well, you can
sorry,
buy
no,
a PS2.
well, yes, no other way to play those games except for, you know, buying a PS3 or PS2.
Now,
But the question I guess I pose to you here is, if a console developer is going to put something out like this, would you rather they also put out an emulation service that you could,
Yes.
or where you can buy
Next
those individual
question.
games, because like
Preferably, sure. Look, preferably, absolutely. To your question, I absolutely would.
Yeah.
But like realistically, is that going to happen? Now I'll say
no, probably not.
we're talking these streaming services. PS Now is the worst I ever used. I noticed at times half a second input lag.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
PS
I-
Now.
it's very bad.
That's part of the reason my expectations were so low with Stadia, is because I tried PS Now first and it was not very good in
Horrid.
my
Yeah,
opinion.
it's
Which
not
is
good.
interesting because I tried when I tried Game Pass. I tried it in a room in my place that actually has not great internet. I actually have a Wi-Fi extender to get better internet in there, and I was on the wrong network when I tried it.
But
And it was still okay. Like honestly, it was still pretty good. That doesn't mean it's gonna be like you still need to have solid internet or a 5G connection. Spend crap tons of money on data plans for it, right? So, but to your question, do I in terms of accessibility, I would like them to have some sort of backwards compatibility options in modern emulators.
Right, like because we're not talking about games that are going to be lost to the ether here. We're talking games that are out. You can go buy them. You can go buy the platform that they came out on. It's strictly like, hey, do you want to go play some old PS2 and PS3 games in a streaming
Yeah.
service?
Yeah.
And that's what Microsoft has done. But it's not perfect, and it's up to the discretion of the publisher. But the Xbox Series XS systems can play games all the way the original Xbox as long as you have that disc, right? Pop them in and it works.
Yep.
And the library of backwards compatible games on Xbox quite extent. I think there's more that backwards compatible
Yeah,
than not
man.
at this point.
Microsoft, like that's a really, really cool feature, I think, with the whole Xbox platform. Like no one else is doing that.
And they built full emulators.
Kudos to them. We got a really good point here in the chat from Intoxicacious. He says every concern ABC has regarding game streaming is under the label of games as a service. So what he's talking about is like basically games that require a server to play, where you like World of Warcraft or like stuff like that. Like you'll often hear about like, oh, this game's servers are shutting down coming this specific date, and that often means that once that happens, the game's not really playable anymore. So that's not a concern strictly for streaming or for digital distribution. It's a concern for physical games that run on servers as well. And in that regard,
Now-
maybe we just have to look at some games as being fleeting experiences.
Well, like if you buy a game that's, I mean, if you have server shutting down, you buy a game that's an online experience. Like I buy, I'm trying to think of a great example that just shut down recently, which is always a little difficult. But how about one that didn't shut down recently? It's still technically active. It's Halo, one of the first. I think it was the first Halo game that was had a strictly online multiplayer experience. I mean, there was co-op too, but
I believe Halo 2.
Halo 2 is the big one for Xbox Live. It's they sold it
you know what?
using effectively.
That's totally fine. We can even go back, right? I just know Halo 3, the servers are still active, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm going to use Halo 3 as my example. Still active. Still buy the game. Go play online. Except it really can't because nobody else is playing Halo 3.
It's funny that you say that because again, in the chat, Intoxications just made that point. Yeah. Also, if it's a multiplayer focused game, even if the servers are still up, even if you bought the game,
Yep.
Oh, cool. I got something to throw in here. Sometimes if a game is popular enough and if the community is there for it, you will see homebrew servers pop up for them.
yes.
So
that's a good point.
one of my favorite things that exists, and I've been meaning to get into this, is the Dreamcast actually has a very active online community. Dreamcast servers have been long since
Yeah.
gone, but you can buy hardware to effectively mimic the old the old Sega servers,
Yeah.
and then connect just normally over the internet with people and play your online enabled
Yeah, that's
games.
pretty cool. They've
So-
got the same thing. My brother was playing the original Demon Souls, the PS3 one. They shut down the servers recently, like a year ago or something like that. and yeah, there's a homebrew one. And he's been playing that on emulator, which is pretty cool.
I think
And Intoxicatious notes, yeah, like the community will always care more and keep games alive longer than the publishers will.
Yeah.
yes, but my point was more is it does depend on the game. So we're talking about games as a service. Players are important to that too, and the reason I use Halo 3 as an example is no one's playing on the Halo 3 service. Nobody. I don't want to say nobody, but I do know people who have said I want to try and do it, and the matchmaking is terrible now. Why? Because Halo 5 and Master Chief Collection have long since superseded it. In fact, on Master Chief Collection, now that matchmaking is working properly, you can go ahead and just play the same Halo 3 maps right there, right? So it's my original point to this whole thing is that when you buy an online game, and I don't know if this translates into using servers like Stadia or not yet. I think the verdict is still out on it. You buy an online game, you know what you're getting yourself into. You know that game, if you buy it for a high price tag, that it's a fleeting experience.
It's time limited, yeah.
Yeah. And it might not be because of the publishers, it might be because of the gamers. It might be the other way around.
So I wanted, if I may,
you may
direct this conversation into the past.
Back in time.
I ended up going down a bit of a rabbit hole here with the streaming services, and I learned some interesting things. So,
should we talking about SegaNet?
Well, maybe we will. Right now, we're talking about Stadia. We've got Stadia. We've got PS Now. The Xbox One, which is called Project X Cloud, which is currently in beta.
It's now just rolled into Game Pass.
Yeah, which is cool. And I'm not surprised at all that they're doing that. But yeah, before all of that, you guys mentioned OnLive. That was the first one that I remember. That was like the big broadband streaming game thing. I remember hearing about it, thinking it was a cool idea, and that it probably would be terrible in practice, which is not too different from how I feel about these things now. But anyway, yeah. So we had OnLive. That started back in 2009, was it? Yeah, 2009,
something like that.
Until Sony purchased them and then stole their technology and shut them down.
Wouldn't be the first time.
What's interesting is actually let's go even further back than that. So before OnLive, we had, you mentioned SegaNet.
Yeah,
and that was around that was the Saturn, right?
No, that was the Genesis one.
There's a Mega Drive in Genesis.
Yeah,
that's right. But yeah, so you had SegaNet, and then if you were in North America like us, you also had the Sega Channel.
Oh, sorry, that's the one I was thinking of. Was Sega Channel? I think it was SegaNet in one of the other regions.
That was overseas. I think that was Japan with SegaNet. Okay. But yeah, we had the Sega Channel. Now, it's not strictly a streaming service because you were not streaming the gameplay directly, from a server to your TV, and you were not streaming the inputs from your controller back to the server. But it's pretty close. And this was like before anyone had the internet at home, really. Came out in 1993. And it worked by plugging a coax cable from your cable provider into the back of a cartridge, and then the cartridge went into your Genesis. And the cartridge had 4 megabytes of RAM on it, where that you had to download the game onto. It would store the entire game in memory, and then you'd play the game that way. And then when you were done, it's gone. And
you had to re-download it every time that you started up the system.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's like really shitty backwards streaming.
They actually had it was not nearly as successful as Sega anticipated. But it did okay. Like they had up to 250,000 subscribers at its peak.
Oh, not bad.
Which is not nothing. And it costs $15 US per month.
It was a lot for back then,
which is a lot of money.
Yep.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, Uh, they all kind of all those the ones after that, like OnLive was $10 a month. Um, Game Pass is $10 a month for the base level. Um, PS Now, I think, is about the same. Stadia is the same, it's $10 a month. They've kind of leveled out at that. Um, but yeah, that was Sega Channel. And another really interesting thing that I learned about Sega Channel is that because they were distributing it with through cable TV providers, they learned that they they had to clean up the signals in order for this to work properly. So they required all of the cable providers that they were using to clean their broadband signals, um, which uh, is sometimes touted with contributing to touted as having contributed to the ubiquity and availability of broadband internet. Or at least it was a step in that direction because now they had all these super fast, clean signals that they could just use for that. So, yeah, like possibly, Sega gave us a helping hand in giving us all broadband internet
Thanks,
through the
Sega.
90s.
Sega does what Nintendo.
Well,
There you go.
Nintendo did it too, though.
We're talking Satellaview.
We're talking Satellaview.
Yep. So let's keep going back. We got Satellaview actually came later, I think.
It came later, yeah. It worked differently. That one actually was streaming.
The long lost Legend of Zelda game.
Yeah, so Satellaview was interesting because this was only in Japan. It was for the Super Nintendo, but it was streamed over satellites, and it had kind of a live broadcast nature, where you had to tune in at the right time to play a certain game.
Yep.
And yes, Intoxication is asking in chat, did it have live Zelda competitions? It had. Actually, I don't know if it had competitions.
It wasn't competitions so much.
No,
it
it
these
had
Zelda-
competitions.
Was it? Are we talking
Yeah, it had
ancient stone
competitions.
tablets though? Because that's the one I know.
It
It
had
had a-
competitions for a variety. I've got the Wikipedia page open right now. It had for a fishing game, a golf game. It had it keeps going on all these sports games mostly, but there were a lot of these games that got little competitions, and they gave out prizes for them. People were people were awarded with special prizes.
It's interesting that like you can see the evolution from that to what they do now with Super Mario 35 and with Tetris 99, where it's like, hey, this weekend, you go online, play a whole bunch of this game, and if you get a certain amount of points or whatever, we'll give you like some free digital content. It's kind of
Oh, yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's very similar in that
Actually, you
way.
can win money from that now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, occasionally they give away my Nintendo Gold points,
Oh yeah. Which is pretty much
which is
money
just
for the eShop.
it's straight up money you can spend in the eShop.
Yeah. So let's go back even further than those ones though. This is something I did not even know existed until a couple nights ago when I was just looking up stuff on Wikipedia, on YouTube, and I stumbled across the Famicom network system, the Family Computer Network System. This was the first home video game console modem. It was an attachment for the Famicom disk system in Japan only. It came out in 1988.
Oh, Nintendo leading innovation once again.
The internet did not even exist. There was no modern consumer internet at that time. But you could plug your phone line into this thing, and it had like a bunch of games, if you could call them that, that you could play on it. So it did. You could download game cheats. You could look at game cheats. You could look at weather forecasts, and interestingly, one of the main things that it came with was an application for live betting on horse races.
Okay,
Wow.
so this is the thing I thought it was. I was waiting for you to get to it. I was
Yeah.
like, this is the horse betting
Man,
thing.
to live in 1988.
and you could do live stock trading as
That
well.
was the other part, was that there was a financial transactions device.
So this was in the 1980s. You could get this thing on your Nintendo, and you could do live stock trades
Oh man.
from your Famicom system. This thing sold 130,000 units in Japan, which is again not a ton, but there are legitimate game consoles that have not sold. that
And I mean,
many
you're talking
copies.
it was effectively region locked. They only sold it in one small part of the world.
Yeah, exactly. To give perspective, the NES sold a grand total of 19.3 million units in Japan, and 130,000 of these modems. So it's
Not
Now,
it's not a ton, but it's still like
I,
that's pretty crazy.
I'm sure the modem is probably region locked, but the the disk system itself was not. You can plug those into as long as you've got a cart converter, you can plug those into a top loader NES and they work just fine.
sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
yeah.
Well, so streaming services really aren't all that new, I guess. Today,
Yeah, I
learned-
mean some of these I don't know if you could really call them streaming services, but it's certainly the precursor to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I did to bring us back to 2021 though. I did have a bit more to say about Stadia. So as I said, I did try it myself. I was pretty impressed with how it performed. I tried playing some Destiny 2 on there, which is probably one of the more um, demanding games that
Right.
they have, and I gotta say, and it's a game that I've played, like had downloaded on my PC and played, and I gotta say, I could hardly tell the difference. Like, uh, no noticeable lag whatsoever. I was pretty impressed with that. The graphics look pretty good, except there's a certain sort of like compressed quality to it. Sort of like you're watching. It's like you're watching a YouTube video of somebody playing Destiny 2, if you know what I mean.
yeah, I do. It's I don't know how to put it. Grainy.
You sometimes get, especially when things get really dark on the screen, you get some of these compression artifacts, like things turning into like squares and stuff like that. But um, uh, and then I also tried what's it called, Steam World Quest, the
Is
card
that the
RPG.
RPG?
Yeah, because I wanted to try a game that was that's also a game that I've played on the Switch, and it's also a game that it isn't like an action game where every input matters, and that was a really pleasant experience. I think like if you're more into playing games like that, Stadia could totally work. Again, with the caveat that you have to always have an internet connection. It has to be relatively stable. Um, but yeah, overall, I was pretty impressed with it. I think the biggest downside with it right now is just it needs more games.
And Stadia's got some bad press associated with it, which is
Yeah.
probably holding it back. And it's
Mhm.
possible, like, the library that you were mentioning, lack of games, Microsoft's got that right now. So, the Game Pass, and they're slow walking Game Pass cloud stuff. So, once it hits PC, we'll see. That's what we're going to see.
Yeah. So I've got kind of two thoughts about what we just went over, and one of them will, I think, transition it into the tech that I want to talk about. But just kind of in the proto streaming services, are you guys familiar with the Nintendo Power cartridge?
I've heard of it.
No.
So Nintendo put out officially licensed flash cartridges in Japan back on the Super Nintendo and the Game Boy. And the deal with these is that you took them into a Lawson convenience store in Japan, and there would be a kiosk there, and you could effectively program onto one of the ROM slots within the cartridge one of a selectable number of games, and the games shuffled through monthly or every few months. And so you could be like, oh, I'm going to pick up this exclusive title or this game that otherwise would be a standard cartridge, and you could do it for a discounted rate. The whole thing wasn't a service, but the cartridge was discounted and the games were discounted. So the way that people use them was very much like how we were referring to the usage of streaming services as sort of demo platforms for games, because you'd be like, oh, I want to play the Super Nintendo game. It's only the equivalent of $10. I have a $25 Nintendo Power cartridge. Let's try out F-Zero. Let's try, and you could always just go overwrite one of these games. But like I said, there were actually exclusives on this platform as well. So like there were, I don't know if it was one or two of the Fire Emblem games are exclusive to this platform and have never seen other re-release.
Not yet.
There was the Satellaview actually had some exclusive games as well.
That's right.
Exclusive sequels to games that we never saw anywhere
Ancient
else.
Stone tablets.
See, you
F-Zero,
were right.
F-Zero 2
distribution is evil.
F-Zero 2 was a BS exclusive. And so that ties in kind of into my next topic, which is how do you make a technology stick? So the two techs I want to talk about right now are augmented reality and virtual reality. So
what's the difference first? Let's start
okay,
there.
so virtual reality is you look at a headset or a screen and you are placed within a world. You can look around in real time, and your motions in real life equate to the motions that happen in the virtual world. Augmented reality is you look at a device and you see a digital object or creature or something placed on top of video or an image of our existing reality,
like Pokemon Go, for example.
Right. Okay. So I was going to say throw out some games that are in those spaces, and we'll see how many we can come up with. That
Nintendo 3DS shipped with augmented reality cards.
It did.
Oh yeah,
and it was not the
right.
only use of it on the system.
No, but I still have those cards somewhere. You get Mario walking around your desk.
Yeah. So okay. The 3DS demo software used a lot of it. Kid Icarus used Kid Icarus Uprising had augmented reality. Obviously, Niantic's Pokemon Go is the big one that we can all point to.
Pokemon Dream Radar.
Pokemon Dream Radar.
Now you're just making up games.
No, that was a like very small downloadable title that got you some exclusive legendary Pokemon in the
just
3DS.
Forms. Just forms. It was
just forms.
It gave you the exclusives of 3 of the legendary forms.
Yes. And it was the only way to get them. Obviously Niantic's other games, which all use the same. I'm trying to think of what the name of the game that the
Harry Potter one
was. No, before
yeah,
before
I know
Pokemon
the one
Go, they had a game
about.
that. Hold on a second. Niantic, their first one was Ingress.
That's it. Yeah.
And Ingress effectively was or is a game that was mostly reused in the making of Pokemon Go.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I think the three of us have all played some Pokemon Go at some point in its lifetime.
Yeah.
How much have you played with the augmented reality features in that game?
I turned them off after the first 2 hours I played that game when it first came out in the summer. But back then, it wasn't because I didn't think it was cool. It was the battery.
Yep.
You know, what's Summer Day? About what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago now?
Something like that.
You know,
Geez, I don't
my old
remember.
iPhone batteries, you know, they don't last that well. And when I was, you know, taking a walk for an hour and I went down 40% in battery, it was, hey, I'm not going to do that again.
Frostbite, similar situation.
I
tried it when it first came out, and
I only played the game for like a couple weeks, probably. Yeah, but
okay, so I probably played Go the longest of the three of us.
Okay,
because I played for a long time. I know people who still play actively, regularly, even in COVID. But the gameplay is actually very different if you're playing with the augmented reality features. Things are a lot more geo pinpointed for Pokemon locations. Not always in a way that made the game accessible to people, but the interesting thing about AR is that it's effectively ubiquitous in in cell phone technology now. So a developer can make an augmented reality game and know that most people, if not everybody, are going to have the tech required to get in.
Do you think
Um,
that's thanks to Pokemon Go?
no, I think that was a natural built up back and forth between Apple and Google. Sorry, between Apple and Android,
Mhm.
that resulted in that technology becoming kind of built into every camera that was shipped out to smartphone manufacturers. But we'll get back to that in a second because it's a barrier to entry that VR hasn't figured out, which is that, to my knowledge, none of us own VR equipment.
Yeah, maybe one day.
No.
It's
Yeah.
for me, it's a cost thing. I mean, it's really hard to
It's
justify a
exactly what it
$500
is.
price tag for what Half-Life Alex.
Right. Okay. So VR, I think between the three of us, we can probably come up with a small handful of games that we know people rave about on VR.
Beat Saber is the other one.
Beat Saber,
So have you guys played?
Astrobot's Playroom.
Have you guys played on a modern VR platform?
I've tried them. Yeah, I wouldn't say, but you had to find play like 15 minutes is probably the longest I've ever had a headset on, and I've never had enough experience to see if it's gonna mess with my head, which wouldn't be surprised.
I went to one of those like gaming play, I don't know, one of those like VR places where you can go and you pay to play by the hour or by the it's actually by like 15 you pay per 15 minutes or something, I think. Went to those with some friends one time for a little birthday shindig, and it was pretty fun. They had oh, which one was it? I want to say it was the Vive, I think.
The
Um,
HTC Vive.
Yeah, they had a bunch of those set up, and we played. I saw some people playing Beat Saber. I mostly played Super Hot, so that's one that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
Skyrim VR.
cool. So my minimal experience was with an Oculus Rift back when they were first getting started. It was a beta kit. I I think it was at a student games convention here in Toronto, a student developed games convention. So like I got to test some games that were in development for the platform. The problem that I think the the platforms have, first of all, um there's no consistency between the bunch of them. So features that are in one headset and their controllers may not be consistent to the next ones. Um, and games are not always compatible between various headsets. But obviously the cost of entry is high. And because nobody can get into these platforms at a cost effective level, nobody's focusing their development solely on VR as the future. I remember when these technologies were first really being pitched as kind of like, oh yeah, Sony's really going all in on PSVR, and you would get like state of plays that they put out, and it was all VR shit. But nobody's buying a PS4 and PSVR and making that the normal setup for a PlayStation owner.
Yeah.
So Sony's never going to say, all future games from these publishers are going to be VR only. And wouldn't you really like to play the next Uncharted? Right? Like,
Yeah. That's
whereas,
an argument that I've had with various VR proponents is like, yeah, VR is cool, if the technology gets there where it works really well and it's affordable, but you're never going to get all games. You can't play all games on VR. It just doesn't make sense.
Exactly. And we were talking about the Famicom Disk System before. That was considered successful by Nintendo because they said all future big installments from Nintendo are coming out on the disk system. They will not be coming to cartridge.
Right.
And so
everyone bought one.
So everyone bought, or lots of people bought in, and
Yeah.
everyone owned Famicoms already. So that they were able to
Mhm.
say, okay, Mario 2 is coming to disk system, Zelda's coming to disk system, Zelda 2 is coming to disk system, Metroid is coming to disk system. Like you look at the disk system library, and we got them all in cartridges here,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but they're all disk system games there, all
Right.
of them. And so you have to make that kind of commitment to say, this is the next big thing, and here's how we're showing it.
But really, we're sitting here. Time's going to tell on this one. We don't have the answer. But is it the next big thing? We spoke about the innovations that have been successful and why they were successful, but also the ones that weren't. And we're sitting here with VR. I think we're on the precipice here. Is it going to really take off? And
This is
it's
like
been-
the third time that the game industry has tried to make VR a thing, and I just feel like it gets a little closer every time. I'm still not sure this is the one.
I can't get over the fact that it's this time it's got staying power, but it's too niche, right?
Yeah.
When
It's
you look
always
at
too
it,
niche.
I can come up with 2 titles that people say are spectacular, and I truly mean spectacular VR only titles.
Resident Evil 7.
No, it's not a VR only title.
No, it's
right?
not a VR only
No,
title.
so
but
what
it's
I
the game
said-
that I'm told you have to play on VR.
no, but I'm mentioning, right? We have to say what's going to have this have
Yeah.
staying power. You mentioned already, it has to be exclusive, right? We have to have. Why are you going to buy this thing? There are 2. There are 2, and it's not Resident Evil 7. The one that I'm being told now you have to play
Half-Life.
is Half-Life Alyx.
Yeah.
The other one being Beat Saber. 2 very different experiences, but as far as the one that you have you really want to understand what VR could do, it's Half-Life Alyx. We did the Game Awards. It was just like a no-brainer. What's going to be the best VR game this year? It's going to be Half-Life. Like it was a no-brainer. So, but you mentioned Oculus Rift first hit the market 6 years ago, whatever it was. PSVR is already 3 or 4 years old. I came up with 2 must-play exclusive VR titles. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Well, so I brought up Astrobot's Playroom, which was the big VR game for PSVR, and like people told me like that is an excellent use of VR tech, right? But are you really gonna jump in on PSVR because of Astrobot's Playroom?
No more than you're going to
Yeah.
buy a PS5 just for Astro's Playroom.
Exactly, right? So I may be getting the name of the game wrong. I thought it was Astrobot's Playroom. I may be confusing it with the PS5
The
game.
new one is Astro's Playroom. I do
Astro's
not remember.
Okay,
Playroom.
so it was Astrobot something.
Astro, I'm gonna look it up.
I remember like every
Rescue
time I heard about
Mission?
what was that?
Astrobot Rescue Mission?
That might have been it. And that was the introduction of that character, and they're like, it's going to be a thing. And apparently the devs did a great job with it. But, again, the price of entry for PSVR is steep.
For a tech demo.
For what effectively was a tech demo.
I
And
think most VR games, if you
are
ask me,
tech demos.
come
Well, that's
off
what
as tech demos.
But that's
Right.
what I've heard
It-
about Half-Life Alyx, is that it's actually not. That it's a full-fledged game, and it's apparently
Yeah.
spectacular. Intoxications brings up a great point, though, in chat. That successful tech works when it's big ways to socialize. We could say that's why the Wii worked so well, right? Wii Sports, whatever.
Okay, cool. So I was hoping that we would get back to this, because I said we would get back to Pokemon Go for a second here. So
Mhm.
why does augmented reality not work then? Because it's a great way to socialize, right? It's not necessary. It does not make the experience. It will never make the experience. I work.
Yeah. It's like when you asked about how much did we actually use the AR feature on Pokemon Go, and a lot of people just end up turning it off. So yeah, and then in that way, it's like the AR is an optional component of the game, basically.
The biggest AR tech demo I remember seeing in the past couple years was Minecraft.
Yeah,
This is when
I
Microsoft
thought
was
you were gonna
demoing
say
the
that.
HoloLens.
with HoloLens.
They've
right?
already they shut that down.
They did. Yep. So I have some experience dealing with augmented reality because I work in the tourism industry, and so that's obviously a thing that is constantly being considered for historical purposes. And even there's kind of this recognition, like if it isn't the thing that sells the experience, it is not worth having. And augmented reality is often pitched as this, you know, it is the antithesis to VR. So where VR is great, you know, AR is not great. Where AR is great, VR stumbles. And in theory, they should be able to make AR an interesting game, but it's just not a technology that we've found that use for yet.
I think
But
AR.
gaming is so focused on it in certain areas, and we talked about the 3DS. Like the 3DS, almost all of the tech demo software uses the augmented reality in some way, shape, or form.
Right. Now, I think augmented reality is cool technology, but I don't think it's applicable to gaming. I think it has a lot of real world applications in terms of things like, research tools, medicine, and things like that. But, for gaming, I think you said it right there. Nobody cares. Nobody wants it. It doesn't do anything.
All right, so that kind of leads into where I wanted to go with this, because those two are great examples of where tech fails. But what about when the technology is the reason that an entire style of gaming comes into existence? So I've got two really good examples of kind of genre making technologies. The first is texture mapping on 3D surfaces. Uh, Not sure if you're familiar with this, but effectively the reason that the first person shooter exists is because of this technology.
Which
In
texture
software,
mapping is basically the taking a polygon shape and wrapping an image around it to
around
give
it,
it texture.
right? So id Software realized that they could do this and make rooms and hallways out of them,
Hmm.
and they went on to create first-person shooters using this technology. Which, for the longest time, everything was called a Doom clone. But if we look at the origins of all this, without that technology and without their realization as to what they could do with the tech, we wouldn't have first-person shooters. Um, and the other one that I came up with in my research is, without the technology that Nintendo built into the Super Nintendo, Mode 7, which was the functionality that let them rotate
Rotate
one of
textures,
their
rotate
graphical
sprites.
layers. Um, Without that, we wouldn't have the kart racer.
Right. Which,
And
interestingly, the technology for car racers hasn't changed in Super Nintendo.
it hasn't. It hasn't. But the whole genre was built upon, oh well, we can just have your little sprite bouncing in place, and without it, and then just rotate the map underneath you. Um, and without that, you wouldn't get the original Mario Kart, which wouldn't bring you any of the other,
Mario Karts.
non-real, like there's really two genres of racers, right? There's like arcade racing games, and then there's kart racers, arcade kart, or party kart racers. And without Mode 7, you wouldn't get the latter. So I was curious if you have any that come to mind, other technologies that have resulted in whole genres.
Well, actually, one that I thought of while you were talking there that I thought you might mention, I don't know if this really counts as a unique sort of technology, but it comes to my mind anyway, as far as sort of genre defining things, is rhythm games. You've got like the GDR dance pad, you've got the Guitar Hero guitars, like stuff like that. Those are specific peripherals that spawned a super, I mean, it's not so much
bad, but
anymore, but it was a fad thing, but it lasted several years anyway, where these games were like super popular.
I mean, and those started primarily in arcades, right? Like
Mhm.
Guitar Hero was a Guitar Freaks clone.
That's right.
Guitar Freaks was Konami, I think.
and they
I
all really
believe so.
came from DDR, right? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
DDR was in arcades too. Yeah.
Yep. Pop-in music, and pretty much all of the rhythm games got their origins in arcades, where flashy lights and controller shaped like objects you might interact with as if they were their real world counterparts.
Yeah.
Make and break an arcade game.
You mentioned technology that spawned a genre, but how about technology that spawned a future? I'm going to argue that if it weren't for Nintendo, maybe somebody else would have come along, but Nintendo's analog stick on Nintendo 64, if that did not exist, what would have happened, right? Mario 64 was considered such a mind-blowing experience, and I wouldn't say it spawned a genre. I mean, sure, maybe 3D platformers, but the control that you had of Mario in Mario 64 is considered like nothing else before, right?
Yeah, it was revolutionary.
Revolutionary. Now,
for sure.
You had Sega Saturn and PlayStation that have come first, technically, and they had 3D games. But, like, compare Crash Bandicoot for a moment to Mario 64, right? It's not the same. And, ABC, you're mentioning we've had first-person shooters without texture mapping. Would we have first-person shooters if it wasn't for Super Mario 64? There's something to think about.
Well, so if you're going to bring up Crash, you should bring up Sega's effective entry into the 3D platformer-ish genre at the time, which would have been Nights into Dreams, and their whole integration of 3D, even though they had an analog stick on the Saturn's 3D pad, which was built for Nights, barely used it. But three completely different interpretations of how 3D gaming was going to go, and three completely different controller schemes for those types of games.
Yep. And now we're all sort of standard on this kind of control style. Everybody does it.
Yeah. It works.
Every modern controller has some sort of variation of that. So,
I mean, as far as genre defining technologies go, like you brought up texture mapping with first person shooters, but I think even more importantly, for first person shooters, we could bring it back to the internet, but not just the internet itself, but specifically, I think it was John Carmack was the coder for Quake.
Yeah.
And like that guy's a friggin' genius, and he did some really crazy things to make that game work as an online multiplayer game. Like without his work on that game, like first person shooters would not be what they were today. And it's not just the graphics, it's the net code, for lack of a better term, and it, like things that are still used today, like interpolating, which is basically in a way sort of like guessing what the player is going to do next and then just kind of correcting it as we go, enabled things to just move much smoother without the player really noticing what was going on. So like stuff like that. And we're getting some suggestions in chat as well. Oh yeah, that's scrolling. Platform games needed scrolling. That was actually like before the NES came out, there weren't that many games that had like a scrolling screen that you would run and jump through.
It's not just the scroll, it's actually the way that they do the scroll with the window. I don't know if you guys actually understand how the NES and the Game Boy did their how they draw the screen and keep static while also keeping it moving. And it basically draws the screen in layers, which is actually quite interesting if you understand how the scan lines and all that stuff work, right? So,
yep.
You have the Game Boy is a really great example. The Game Boy, screen is actually this wide, but we actually have data in memory for a screen this wide, and it draws line by line, and it decides background first, and then it decides sprite next, and a window last. So you see, your score, your items. I actually find this technology really cooling, and it's like core to emulation development when you're looking at how to understand how these screens work. And you have to figure out which pixel has the highest priority, and that's how it works. It's really, really cool, and you have to keep things you keep things moving. You pulling in from the screen that you can't even see. I like that scrolling stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
just kind of because he mentioned it, Intoxications mentioned that Carmack worked on PC scrolling. I don't know if either of you
Oh,
is
okay.
familiar with the prototype that they put together prior to
That's
working
right.
on.
Yeah, I think that was in that Netflix documentary, wasn't it?
It was, although I think I knew about it prior to that, which is that he recreated Super Mario Brothers 3
On PC.
in on PC,
Yeah.
and it's not the first time that Mario had been on a PC platform, but
Mario was
it was
missing.
the first. It was the first. What was that?
I said Mario was missing.
Oh no!
No,
I
that
mean
came
like
later.
Super Mario Brothers Special for the Sharp. What was it, the X68000 or something like that? Um, Hudson made that game. They had a license through Nintendo to make it for a PC
Hmm.
platform, and
Okay.
it had scrolling akin to The Legend of Zelda when you move from one screen to the next. So like you wouldn't have the same kind of scrolling that people were used to with Mario games. Um, it just wasn't a known thing for PCs to be able to do,
Right.
and Carmack effectively figured it out uh, in an attempt to get Nintendo to license a port of Super Mario 3 to PCs.
And in typical
Uh,
Nintendo fashion, that did not happen.
yeah,
But
did not happen.
Eh,
They said, "Oh yeah, it's cool." No,
what you were talking about technology that pushed forward, the first person shooter genre, and we didn't talk about GoldenEye, and we didn't talk about what GoldenEye did with AI, which was before GoldenEye,
tell Natalia to stand in front of your bullets.
not that AI. First person shooters, they generally reacted to what you did, right? So you can take it back to Doom, right? As you move through and the enemies had very specific patterns, and if you moved, and you know what I mean, like it was very crude. Whereas in GoldenEye, they reacted to you very differently. It was the first real, I don't want to say sophisticated, because today we have so much more sophisticated AI in games like that, but it was really interesting how they managed to do that, where the enemies would see you and then they would react, right? Or
Yeah.
if you shot them, or they heard a bullet, right? Like you shot but missed, they would react to that as well.
That's right.
Or,
Yeah.
and people
They
remember
weren't just
GoldenEye.
like they weren't just in a room waiting for you to open the door so they could run and shoot you.
Exactly.
They would actually like that they could be not even aware of your presence yet until you made too much noise.
That's where stealth came in, and people remember
Yeah.
GoldenEye as this nostalgia glasses thing, where they look at it and they're like, well, it doesn't play that well today, and I don't know why I used to like it so much. The multiplayer was fun, but really it was so well regarded because of what it did technically under the hood. That the programming in GoldenEye was miraculous for the time.
Yeah, I think I watched. I bet you watched the same one. I watched a lengthy YouTube video about the development of GoldenEye recently,
Yeah, I think I've seen
where they
that.
talked about some of this stuff. What's the guy's name again?
Oh, it came up on a shuffle a while ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't recall right now.
I can't think of his name, but anyway, yeah, it was pretty interesting. They definitely did some cool stuff. Yeah. One more piece of tech that I wanted to talk about, but we didn't really get to, and this is like current and future sort of technology. Now that we're talking about here is the cloud processing. Um, it's one of those things that you don't really see when you're playing a game,
Mhm.
but what it's doing is really cool, and I think that this is going to be a big thing going forward. I think so. Microsoft, no surprise, is at the forefront of this kind of stuff because I mean, Microsoft is a software developer first, and they're known for their Azure servers, their Azure architecture. So, couple really cool examples of this. I mentioned I've been playing Sea of Thieves lately. So Sea of Thieves runs on Azure, and um, you know, server based games are nothing new. what's interesting about Sea of Thieves is that it has dynamic servers. So they have any number of servers all around the world that are always online 24/7. It's not like, okay, I'm starting a game with my friends. We create a lobby. It jumps into a server, and then when we leave, that server shuts down. These servers are always on, um, and they're being dynamically created or shut down as needed, depending on the number of players that are active in any region. Um, and they're also shuffling players between servers dynamically to make sure that we always basically they've designed the game around a certain amount of player interaction. So they want you to have an interaction with another group of players every, I think they say like 20 minutes or something like that.
Right.
So if they find that like, okay, this server only has two groups of players on it, we're going to move these two groups of players onto this other server. So they're able to do that with their servers, and they're able to do it in a way that it does not affect what's going on for those players at all. I've seen it happen in the game. Basically, what happens is a little poem pops up on your screen that says like, "Oh, the seas are changing," blah 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 blah, and that means you're being shuffled to another server. And it takes like a few seconds, and then you're back in the game, and nothing around you has changed. The weather around you, the items that are on the island that you're on, like it all gets migrated dynamically from the server you were on to the server that you're going to. Um, and yeah, like that's pretty cool stuff, I think. Another really they also do, I mean, this is pretty common nowadays with software in general, but they are also able to do rolling server updates. So what that means is they fix a bug, they push it out to the servers, they restart. Okay, this server is empty, restart that one, and now migrate some players onto that new server, and now we can restart that one that they were on before. So they're able to restart and upgrade all their servers, uh, over the course of
In
time without
waves
it
and
affecting
not
anyone
have
at
people
all.
on you notice. That's really cool.
Um, Another really cool example of cloud processing that is, again, it's Microsoft, is the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020.
Oh yeah.
And if you guys haven't seen it, there's a short documentary on YouTube about it, which is really cool what they're doing. Like basically, they've recreated the entire map of the Earth using AI, machine learning AI, and satellite photographs. So using AI, they're able to feed satellite photographs into their software, onto their servers, and it looks at a photo and it knows, oh, these are trees. But not just that they're trees, but that they're a specific type of tree, or maybe because they're in a specific part of the world and they're a specific color. And basically, they're able to populate the entire world and using 3D objects, buildings, cars, trees, water, everything, um, just by just using this AI and feeding it satellite photographs. They can do all of that. And what's cool is your game on your machine, whether it's your Xbox or your PC, your game is not doing that. Your game is not responsible because the amount of processing that would take is just impossible on a consumer PC. They've basically got a cluster of servers, cloud-based servers, that are doing all of this processing, keeping the world up to date, um, even feeding live weather information back to your game. So half of the game is half running on your computer and half running on these servers, and they're
Right.
just feeding you live data back to your game. And
I mean, it's a
yeah, I
cool.
think like stuff like this is like there's so much you could do with that, and I think that's gonna be a big thing going
I
forward
think the
with
part
games like that.
coolest part about that is that people won't even notice it. It's just when it hits
Yeah,
more. It's not even going to be like
exactly.
the forefront of your gaming because, like, let's be honest, the world is going to
That's
start
what I'm
running on
saying. Yeah,
on the cloud, but it's going to drive it forward in a way that most people would never even understand. And I think that
yeah,
is super cool. Um, we got to see how that's going to play out in the next 10 years, I think. But yeah, I haven't had a chance to play Flight Simulator. Do you even play Flight Simulator, or you just
I
coast?
haven't.
Like,
After I
You
watched that,
become one with Flight Simulator.
yeah, a friend of mine recommended that short documentary to me, and I watched it, and immediately was like, I gotta play this game.
goes to download Flight Simulator on Game Pass.
It
Yeah,
is on Game
so
Pass. So yeah, I think I've been actually been meaning to download it on there. It is a very large game. I might need to make some space, but
Gotta get that new hard drive.
yeah.
yeah, I just did that
All right.
specifically for Flight Simulator, right?
Yeah, that's
Um,
why you get a 3 terabyte drive just so you can play Flight Simulator.
Yeah, 2 terabytes.
2 terabytes.
But yeah, going back to what you just said though about the being in the forefront versus the kind of an unseen, unheard, unacknowledged element of games. Do you guys personally have a preference as to whether that tech is visibly at the forefront of games going forward? Like,
What do you mean?
the examples that I gave were things where like they
Well-
were almost revolutionary in nature, and so you saw them and you were like, this is the future of gaming, but you knew it because you like there were things that you
Yeah.
saw and you're like, nothing before this was doable like this.
I don't think you
Uh,
have to know that it's there for it to really make an impact. Now it's cool when you do, but
Like knowing about the cloud computing involved here is awesome, or the cloud processing or whatever the terminology was.
Mhm.
Is great. Like, it's super cool to know that that's how that's working, and like I will certainly appreciate it going forward. But like, I think the second one I mentioned was Mode 7, right? The first time I played something like F-Zero and I watched the world spin down into
Yeah.
the shot behind the Blue Falcon, and it was like, have I ever seen a game do something like this before?
Yeah, you definitely notice it.
And like, as the Super Nintendo went on, you got things like developers adding additional hardware chips to their games to allow for wireframe movements, and eventually you got things like the Super FX, which allowed for 3D elements to be rotated.
I think it's
And-
more you don't necessarily notice the technology when you're seeing it, right? Like when you saw F-Zero, you said, "I've ever seen this before," but you didn't really know what it was necessarily the first time.
I
Seeing
didn't know
something-
what it was, but I knew that was something that was not previously possible.
Right, so you
Mhm.
might not understand what the technology is, but to see what's possible, I guess that's really what we kind of are.
Well,
getting
so
here.
that's what I said. Like, do you care if it's the forefront? Do you care if like you notice it versus something where it's in the background and it does amazing things, but you're not you don't know that it's something new, and you don't know that it's something
I think that if it's
revolutionary.
I think that if it's making my experience more positive, it doesn't matter if it's at the forefront or not.
Yeah.
I think that's really what it comes down to. Would I
Takes
have
a bit of
known?
both.
Yeah, would I have known playing Flight Simulator, or experiencing Flight Simulator rather? Would I have known that the cloud was powering that game? Probably not. Not unless I had looked that up. But I
Mhm.
would have looked at this and said, the fact that I feel like I'm in this world, truly integrated in this world. I've never felt that before. A real world recreated in a game. I've never felt that. And I feeling that alone, I think that's enough to say this is good.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be a control stick touching your thumb to be to feel special, right?
Yeah.
You can tell.
So, we covered a lot here. We got some stuff coming on chat right now. A lot of really great technology. We only scratched the surface here. We really can't cover 2 hours here. But we do hope that you guys will drop us comments on Twitter, YouTube. Please pop on the Discord. We'd love to continue these conversations in Discord because we have so many things to talk about that we just don't have time to do.
There's a whole channel for talking about the podcast.
Absolutely. So if you're not there yet, please come in and we'll talk your ear off, and you'll probably get sick of us and leave, but that's okay.
Come suggest topics for us as well if you want to hear us ramble on about a specific topic. Let us know.
Yeah, we were talking about maybe doing a game franchise, doing like a close look, retrospective look at a certain game franchise. Just doing a whole episode on one game franchise. So, you guys got any ideas for that? We'd love to hear it as well.
For sure. We have lots of fun podcasts potentially planned for you guys. Lots of other content as well. If you missed our Sonic the Hedgehog 2 race, the VOD is on Twitch still. You can go check that
Oh
out.
no.
Which is really an embarrassing race for a couple of us, not Frostbite. And but we'll be doing some more stuff like that here as well with Totally Average Gamers. I really do want to thank everybody for coming to listen to tonight. You will be able to download this episode very soon on Anchor. It will be up on YouTube. You'll be able to catch the VOD right after this on Twitch as well for a time Twitch. So again, thank you so much for everyone who's following us. If you haven't yet dropped your follow, please do. You're more than welcome to follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to YouTube as well. I would love to have you guys there. And keep up to date with all the other stuff we're doing. Anything else you guys want to add?
Don't think so.
Right. Well, guys, we will be catching you all very, very soon. Hopefully next week. Again, hope everyone stays average. And have a good night, everybody. Easy.
Stay average.